Good morning everybody, and welcome to Magic in Mind. My name is Magin Rose Blog, and I am going to be taking you through today. First of all, fabulous opportunity coming up for all of you aspiring healers and advanced healers. We've got a very exciting month coming up ahead, both in Magic in Mind and in terms of some new trainings that I am working on. We're going to be finishing our month of diving into the magical identity in terms of the pathway of the magician. So we've got some exciting stuff to look at there in terms of the magician and the ego. We're working with the energy of the waning moon. I don't know about you, but the moon was just beautiful last night. It was honestly beautiful. It was one of those evenings when the moon was yellow. It was huge. I did some stargazing. It was wonderful. I just lay in my garden. I got my tent out, spent the night in the tent, got my little app out so that I could see all the stars. I was watching the moon, and then this morning went out, and always go out in the mornings to prepare for this session. I like to get myself moving, and the moon was there again in the blue sky. It was just, I just loved it. So it really feels to me like a transition period at this point. So the waning moon means some release work. So we're going to be looking at the path of the magician in terms of some of the things that it can bring that might be holding us back, that we might want to be releasing through the period of this time. We're going to look at our planetary movements as usual, and then we're going to look at 6 spirit guide runes. So these are the last 6 runes that we haven't covered during the path of the magician. So if you are here and you're joining me live, hold on to your rune of whether it's the rune that you're working with this month or this week or today for a moment, and then I'll let you know when to share them in the chat so that we can do some readings around them. If your rune comes up and it's one of the 6, that's great. Often we do have some people here who are holding those runes, and they've come up for that reason. And otherwise, if you're here live, sometimes things come anyway, and I'll do a little mini reading for you if that feels right. I'm not able to do that for everybody, but when the time feels right, then that comes through. Morning Justine, morning Candice, lovely to see you both here. And if you are joining me on the replay, if you're not here live, please do still say hello. Obviously, if you're here live, please say hello. If you're joining me on the replay, please just put #replay, and you can still share your room. Let me know how this is landing for you. So let's start with what's happening this month for healers. Whether you are already a rune healer, whether maybe you've done Awaken with me, or if you've done other trainings and you want to deepen your rune practice, or whether you're thinking, actually, I really want to start out on this. So I have got 3 opportunities coming up, which is very exciting. So first of all, I have a brand new workshop. It's a masterclass. It's a 3-hour masterclass. So I've not done a masterclass of this length before in our main community before, on healing with the runes. So this is on the 12th of September, on Tuesday the 12th of September. It starts at 10 a.m. in the morning here, UK time. And we're going to be doing a lot of practical work around healing with the runes. So for now, if that's interesting to you, put it in your diary. It's all you need to do right now. And yeah, it's gonna be really exciting, more in depth than I've done before. So some of you may have come to the sessions that I've done before, where I've done sort of an hour and a half, and this is going to be a little bit deeper. So even if you've done rune healing before, you are very welcome to come along to this one, because we will be doing some lovely practical exercises as well. So that is coming up. Now, if you have done Awaken with me before, maybe you did it a couple of years ago and you're thinking, well, I'd like to get back into it, or you are in the mastery program at the moment, either way is fine. I am launching my certification. So this is a level 2 practitioner certification for rune healers, and this is for healing for others. So when you do Awaken, all of our work is on healing for the self. We have one module on healing for others as an introduction, but it's mainly focused on self-healing. And this is what I've been wanting to do for a long time, is to introduce something to allow other people to go out and to say yes. And I've got all of my foundations, and I'm now a rune healer. So it is a practical course with 2 live sessions, and we do pair work and all sorts of work. And then there are 10 implementation modules to support you from going, how do I start out as a rune healer, all the way through to saying, yes, I know who I'm working with, I know what I'm offering, I've got all of those foundations in place. All of that is there for you. So that starts on the 28th of September. So if you are an Awaken graduate, or if you are somebody who's experienced with working in the runes, you can get in contact with me, emailtalk@maginrose.com, if you want to have a chat and you think, so I feel as if I'm ready for this course. We can talk about that and see whether that is there for you. And the final piece is that next lunation, so starting with our new moon, when the new moon comes, we're going to be exploring the path of the healer for a full month. So this is the time when you might want to start to think about, what does being a healer, you know, if you do I self-identify as a healer? No. Do I offer healing to others, or do I just feel as if people come to me, they feel whole in my presence, you know, I feel that energy flow between us, anything like that? Start to bring that, start to think about that. But today, obviously, we're focusing on the magician. So all you need to do in order to get to know more about those opportunities is to make sure that you are signed up to the Magin Rose newsletter. And then you'll hear more information about that, including all the sign-up information that will be coming this week. Get the 12th in your diary if you're thinking, yes, I want to do that. Get the 28th in your diary if you're thinking about you want to do the advanced healing work. Those are there for you, and you'll be hearing more about those in the newsletter. Justine says, absolutely amazing course, the Rune Healing for Others. Yes, Justine was in my Trailblazer cohort. Thank you, Justine. And it was magical, and I haven't finished yet, but it was just wonderful. Loved doing it. Very excited to be offering this out now into the world. So thank you, Justine. Lovely to have you here. Hi, Lisa. Lovely to see you today. So I can see you've got Fayu, so I'm going to note that down. But that, as I say, we're going to do the runes a little bit later in the session. I know we've done Fayu before, so we'll just see if anything comes up for you, Lisa, as we go through with Fayu. So get yourself signed up to the newsletter. All of that's good. It's helpful to do that anyway, because you get the Monday little Magic in Mind blog, all about it's a little bit of a distillation and a slightly different take on what we cover in these live sessions that you get through the blog. So you get that on a Monday, and it also means that you get all of the notifications about opportunities that are coming up. So let's talk about the magician. Now, when I say ego and I talk about magician, it might be that for you already start to get some little ideas in your mind about what an egotistical magician might look like. I think about these, very controlling, power craze. We often get these this archetype of somebody who starts out on a magical path. A bit like let's say like Morgan Le Fay. They start out Saruman, maybe from Lord of the Rings, and they start out with maybe good intentions, and then the power becomes too much. It sort of takes over, and they get to the point where they don't want to work in partnership with the magic, they want to control the magic, and there is a dominance there, and I think that's important in terms of thinking about dominance. Now, we can also see the magician at play in things like the mad scientist, so like Dr. Frankenstein, for example. I can bring life to this creature. In the surgeon, so we can get to let's say more like grounded in our current modern times, people who are absolutely at the top of their professions, and who can get, sometimes surgeons are said to have like a god complex, aren't they? It's like, and that control and that power takes you from being like exceptional at what you do. I'm at the top of my field, I'm at the top of my game, and at some point you tip over. And it might be that you start to view other people as being less than you. Look how brilliant I am, therefore everyone else must be less. You feel as if you're sort of, at the ivory tower often comes up, doesn't it? This idea that I'm higher than everybody else. I'm looking down on everybody else. And they feel separate. And this idea of separation is important. I am separate from everybody else. I don't need support from anybody else. Nobody else has anything to offer me anymore. I'm tired and jaded. You can think about, again, if you think about Saruman and the Lord of the Rings. So Gandalf the Grey recognises that he needs Frodo. He needs these quite humble beings to keep him grounded. He is not able to hold the ring because he knows that he will be consumed and changed by its power. He recognises his own limitations. Saruman doesn't, you know? And so that partnership piece is very important. But when we think about this, what I want to make really clear is when I talk about the egotistical magician, that is there's an archetype out there. But that doesn't mean that the ego is a bad thing. That doesn't mean if you have ego, you're a horrible, controlling wizard who's going to go out and murder Ents. You know? I'm going into Lord of the Rings there, I hope you get that analogy. No, everyone has an ego, and it is an incredibly important inherent part of our identity. And one of the things that I love about the Anglo-Saxon tradition and the Viking tradition and all of these Germanic traditions is that they actually had a very, very rich conceptualization of the human soul. It wasn't a sort of generally shared thing, and I think this is important, that what we understand of as being Northern tradition soul law is taken from all sorts of different places all over Northern Europe, where people were describing their own understanding of what it meant to be human, or what it meant to be an ensouled being travelling through the world. And there, I use the term woven soul to describe this. Different parts of the self. So we've talked about Herminia before, the idea of personal luck that can be passed from generation to generation. It can be passed from one person to another. It's part of the soul complex. Now, in modern rune practice, we talk about the Issa rune, which is going to be one of our power runes for today, that we're going to do a bit of a deep dive in. We talk about the Issa rune as being a rune that can represent the ego. I'm going to find the Issa rune here. It's very simple. It's a single straight line. We get the word I from it, you know, which makes absolutely perfect sense. Now, this came from the Armanen system, which is the youngest of all of the Futhals, but it actually works very, very well for the Issa rune. Here we go. The I here. So those of you who have been on my embodiment with the runes workshop before, or you might have been on other workshops with me, I've done this many, many times, will know we do a beautiful Issa empowerment meditation using the Stadgaldra, the standing stance for Issa, and the mantra I am, alongside the rune chanting for Issa. And it is beautiful for being fully present in the body and for embracing the ego, you know, for embracing the ego and recognising it's part of us. So at this point, just before we go any further, I'd just like to take a moment, you know, maybe give yourself a little bit of a cuddle and just say, you know, I love my ego. There's nothing wrong with my ego here. Loving it a little bit. The way that I like to think about the ego, or one of the ways I like to think about the ego, because I think we can always be fluid about it, is it's like a house that the soul builds for itself during the process of a human incarnation. We cannot travel without it. Imagine the soul entering the wild places of Utengard, of the otherness. Everything feels other. Everything feels strange and different. And then, first of all, experiences are offered. This is safe, this is not, this is food, this is not, this is comfortable, this is not. Name is offered. This is who you are, this is your name. And the structure of identity starts to form around the raw child self at that point, with this, you know, so much like power in it. I can feel myself diverting here. I'm going off on a tangent. I'm pulling myself back in here just for a moment. We'll see if it comes up when we talk to them about the runes. This wild creature that is your soul comes into being, and then it builds a house for itself. And there is nothing wrong with that house. Okay? And I think that's important, because we can often talk about egotistical and it starts to be like, oh, anyone who has an ego, there's something wrong with them. But I don't believe that that's the case. So remember that idea of the house. We're going to come back to that. Now, the breakthrough for me came when I was reading the Issa rune poems, and I remembered the line, the blind man needs to be bled. And this for me was a real breakthrough, because I'd already, through studying the Armanen Futhark and the work of Edward Dawson in particular, cottoned on to this idea of the Issa rune, which represents ice as being the the ego or the self, and that we could use this exercise to strengthen the magical identity through working with the Isa self. And then when I read that, I was like, oh yeah, the blind man needs to be led can be translated as weakness. And a magician, an egotistical magician, might see this as weakness, and they would be like, well, the thing that I need to do is to perform a magical working to regain my sight, so that I am independent and autonomous, you know? And because otherwise, the person leading me, they're in charge, they're in control, and I'm, no, I don't want that. But actually, the sentence, to my mind, means almost the opposite. It means the blind man needs to be led, is the blind man recognizing that the blind man may well have many other fabulous gifts, attributes, much more acute sense of hearing, much greater awareness of energetically what's going on, ability to sense vibrations under the feet, all sorts of things that people who use their sight all of the time as their primary sense mechanism have lost. No? So there's no reason for us to assume that the blind man is any different to any other human being. It's just a useful analogy for the Rune poem to say there are times when all of us need to reach out for support that we trust in order to travel across the unknown landscape of life. And this is where this point around the magician not working in partnership comes in. The magician who is centered purely in the ego has become blind and much more limited than the blind man in the Isa Rune poem to the fact that they can get a lot more done when they trust other people, when they trust source, when they allow themselves to be led at times. They often are not able to reach out to the other parts of the magical self, so they wouldn't trust the seer necessarily, they wouldn't trust the healer. You can see this in society today. If you think about the modern conceptualization of the ego as being the part of the self that is the conscious self, that's sort of mediating between the I don't like these terms personally, the sort of the higher and the lower, or the id, the sort of chaotic primal animal self, and the rational analysing self. Not always sure that it's as neat and simple as that, but we're going to go with that as a construct for a moment. It places the ego in a space of being a bridge, which is nice in terms of the Isa Rune. It's the bridge that we need to cross, and the ego itself becomes the thing that we're building all the time. It goes back to it being a built construct, sort of a house. Whereas if we get trapped within it, and we won't let anybody else in, and we won't look out of the windows, and we won't open the door to anyone else, we're not going to invite anyone else into my house, all of reality is my house. Everything that's outside of it, no, I don't believe in that. I don't believe in energetic stuff. I don't believe in the divine. I don't believe that anything will get done unless I do it myself. You can see how modern society has become trapped in a very particular structure of ego and is unable to call on the support. So we are walking blind through the world, refusing to be led, is one of the ways that we could interpret what's going on here, what the Isa Rune might say to us at this point. So to go back to the idea of the house, the idea of the ego as being the house, and the idea of what the northern tradition might bring in. At the very beginning of the formation of the worlds, Ginunga Gap, the great void, is all that there is. And at the very edges we have the ice and we have the fire. And our human self, when it incarnates into the world, is like a tiny little microcosm of that macrocosm of the universe. And we come in and we have the ice and we have the fire. And these are the materials with which we play. And Ginunga Gap is the vast space of life stretching out ahead of us, unknown, untested. And we start to draw on these elements to create the structure of the self with the ice, and to adventure out into the world and to explore and to bring our purpose, whatever that purpose is, into the world, to be a change maker in some way. We have to bring those two elements together. Now, if we keep them separate, they don't want to play with each other, they don't want to partner with each other, and the ice says, no, I want to stay rigid and controlled in my house that I've created. And the fire says, well, no, I don't like all of this structure and doing what other people say, and having like an agreed model for how everything goes. I'm going to go off and do my thing. They cannot survive actually without each other. So the force of fire, which should be the evolving self and the divine like self that has come and wants to bring that change into the world, to bring that mission into the world, becomes simply a destructive force because it's not able to operate in collaboration with anything else around it. It becomes very transient because the fire isn't the fuel. The ice represents the fuel, represents the form of everything. So it doesn't have fuel, so it burns out very, very quickly. So its energy becomes dissipating. It's supposed to be an initiating energy that then works in partnership with the ice, shapes the ice, and then comes back, and they form this cycle with each other of initiation and formation. But it becomes simply destructive and transient. The ice, on the other hand, this sort of form, which we can think about as being the ego as well, both of these things are in the ego, becomes dark and still and rigid without the fire to melt its edges sometimes and reshape it and reform it and allow the waters to flow and change to take place. So they are, the initiator and the manifester, or the one who brings change and the one who reflects that back, is what needs to be happening within the healthy ego of the magician. So the magician is able to wield these two forces and recognize that the house of the self is simply that, a beautiful, wonderful home for the soul during the course of life, but not the be-all and end-all, and not the thing that needs to either stay totally rigid and never change, or the thing that's just annoying and needs to be destroyed because everyone else is, I don't like what's going on in the world, for example. So some of the ways in which we can know that we might have a slightly controlling magician might be the fear itself of not being in control, sort of uncertainty coming to the fore too frequently, fear of the unexpected, fear of conflict, fear of other people's emotions coming and being too big for us to handle. And it can manifest as lack of trust. Desire to dominate does not allow for lack of trust. And this can be lack of trust in other people. It can also be lack of trust in source. That sense, I said it's like hard work. It's hard work to be an egotistical magician because you don't trust that if you sow the seeds, they will grow on their own. No, I've got to keep tending them. I've got to do the thing. I've got to find the energy for them. I need to be in control of every single little bit of the environment. It needs to be a controlled environment. I will place each grain of soil one at a time around the seed, and I will control the levels of the light, and I will do all of those things, rather than I put it in the earth, see what happens. That comes along. And it then becomes trust of the self as well, because it puts the house in charge of everything else, and it stops any form of evolution from happening. And so you begin to doubt everything that comes, every idea that comes through. You start to doubt all of the other aspects of the magical identity, like the healer and the seer. No, I need to stay in my fixed place. So it's a very destructive force in the long run. Anything else I want to say at this point? I think the only thing to say at this point is, so we're in our last week of the waning moon. So Sooner Star Wheel, we're working on the next edition of Sooner Star Wheel, which comes out monthly. And I'm going to be exploring this idea of the house of the soul and how we can work with that, and the ego in a little bit more depth through the coming month when we work with the healer energy as well. So if you're interested in working with your planetary movements a little bit deeper and you're not a member of Sooner Star Wheel, now is a great time to join, because we always do a soul care meditation, and I can feel that one forming at the moment around working with the ego self. So let's see what people have got to say about that. So Justine says, ego is the soul's house. I love that. And it's a reassuring thought to remind the ego that house can be rebuilt. Yes, that the house can be rebuilt. And that, we are travelling through the landscapes of our lives. And so we carry our homes with us, and they need to be able to adapt to different environments if we're going to grow and develop and change. If you think about, I talked about the ice and the fire, and if you imagine the house as being like structured from the ice, then the part of you that is desiring to travel and desiring to be to evolve and to bring that purpose through in the world is sometimes referred to as the Valkyria, sort of light, this light of the soul. When you imagine the Valkyria as the light inside the ice, how beautiful, as it shimmers and flickers through that, through the house, and sends its light out into the world, and then sees what the world has to offer it back, and it carries on travelling. It says, yes, I can reshape my home. I trust myself to do that work of reshaping, and that too will be beautiful, even though the ice may crack and break and may not feel the same at all, and yet I can do it. So all to play for there. So through the course of this week, so Frigg's chariot is moving out of retrograde at the very beginning of this week. Hooray! We all cry. So Frigg brings in that real possibility and potential of collaboration with the universe. So you do imagine Frigg as being the holder of collaboration, of all forms of collaboration, par excellence. She oils the wheels of collaboration in every regard. And so when she is on retreat, she says, you're going to need to manage this, and it might be a bit tricky because that, I was talking about like trusting the universe to have your back. Obviously, Frigg's influence isn't necessarily there. So when moments get difficult, we can bicker more with others. But she's saying this is all part of your growth. This is part of chipping away at the ice a little bit, and perhaps recognizing that that relationship needs tending a little bit more, or all is not okay over there, or this partnership is actually done and you're just going through the motions over and over again. It's that when you're a caretaker, your steward, your patron, your guide, we're talking about the blind man needs to be led, when they are absent, that is when you start to realise, this is what might be off, or this is what I'm going to exercise my own limitations a little bit at this point. We all need that moment where the stabilizer wheels come off for a little bit of time, and we go, actually I can manage some of this okay on my own, or no, this is where I need to improve for myself. And then the teacher or the patron will come back in with that new knowledge that you both have. So Frigg is coming back in at this point. So this is a great time to have a chat with her and say, this is what I have learned through this time. If you have had any conflicts, any challenges, any difficulties, any sense of your internal partnerships sort of not working brilliantly, have a chat with her. No, she's listening, she's ready. So she is coming back at this point. At the same time, Thor's chariots, that's Jupiter, is going into retrograde. So one coming out, one going in. But this isn't necessarily a bad thing, because when Thor goes into retrograde, it's a little bit like the foot comes off the accelerator for a while, and we get to enjoy what we have already planted. So it's a little bit of a reaping time, which is, it's great that it's this time of year over here in the Northern Hemisphere. We're starting to move into harvest time. That sort of feels energetically very, very good at this point. So what you want to be thinking of here with Thor, so he's in retrograde, he's in Largus. So you remember, overall we've got this energy of seed sowing and initiation and newness. And then he brings in the water energy of Largus, which then fertilizes and brings the energy of water to the seeds that we have sown through the course of the last few weeks. And the key messages here are plow what you have planned, basically. So imagine you've got your field, this is your field of your intentions, and it might be that you've done the planning. I've not done anything about it, but I've done the planning. I know what's coming. So Thor says, don't go off and do something else. Don't go, I felt like that last week, but now I don't really feel like it anymore. I'm going to go and try something else. I'm going to be all creative and try have new ideas and things. He says, no. Plow what you have planned. Sow where you have ploughed. So if you've already made the furrows, don't be going, I don't really like this land. It's a bit too clayey, you know, the soil's a bit claggy. I might go and try something else. That time has passed, mate. Sow your seeds and reap where you have sown. No? So it's about tending what you have already energetically sown. That's what's important at this juncture in time. So we're coming to, I've got one more planetary movement. I know that this has already shared for you, but if you have your runes that you'd like to share, please do share them now, and then we can have a little look, and I'll see if they don't come up as our spirit guide runes, then I can see if anything else comes up for you at this point. And then we have Tears Chariot. So Tears Chariot is going to be transiting into Gibo. So that's the rune of gift giving and exchange. And this is important again in terms of, it adds to this energy of sticking with the structure. So Gibo is quite a structured rune, although it's gift giving, and we can feel that spirit of like generosity that comes through it. So it's a very expansive rune in terms of generosity. But there is this sense of what initiated that generosity, what brought that through in the first place, that's key for Gibo. It's not. It's actually very appropriate for the Thorin retrograde period of time. So these two runes are going to partnership very beautifully with each other. It's that reminder that you reap what you sow. The energy of one movement, action, let's say, creates the energy of the next. So keep following those through. Why has this turned out the way it has? Gibo offers the opportunity to look back and say, okay, what was the cause behind this next event and this next event and this next event? Works very nicely with the magician energy as well, because the magician likes to know why. So we can work with that a little bit. It's always looking for that. What was the contract underneath? What was the expectation underneath? Again, if you think about the house of the soul, what are my underlying beliefs around this event? That's Gibo energy. What are my underlying beliefs around this person has not acted the way I thought they were going to, and I'm feeling a bit betrayed right now. Why is that? What was it about the contract, even if it was unspoken between us? What was it about it that meant that they acted in this way when I didn't expect them to? What needs to be revisited around this? What might need to come to the fore? What might I need to go and say in terms of like draw on that frig energy then to say, I'm going to need to have a chat with them and say, what just happened wasn't what I was expecting. This is what my assumption of the way that our relationship was working and what was going to happen here. What's happened? What happened? How can we make this? What are your expectations? It's just asking those questions that say, somewhere along the line, the rules of exchange have not been agreed, or maybe the person did agree them and went against them, and that's a slightly different thing. But it's working out what rules are underlying each situation that's important there with the Gibo rune. Okay. Tier Warrior Self, and he's going to help you to really hone into those. So if you do feel those moments of like a little bit of rage coming through there, hold on, they said this and they've done that, then move back into the, okay, Tier's pointed out the problem, I can use Frigg to help with the collaboration, and Thor as a reminder that we sort of sowed, I need to keep on sowing my seeds and I sort of keep going on the direction that I've chosen for myself. So I'm not just going to ditch the baby with the bathwater on this because someone's annoyed me or frustrated me, but I am going to tackle it. No, Tier's not going to let you just say, it's all right, it'll be okay. No, that's probably the worst thing that you can do, is just to say, I'll just leave it and it'll be fine. We're better than that, aren't we? Healers out there. Healers unite. I'm going to come to next week, or I should say next month actually, next 4 weeks, looking with the healer. So those are our 3 planetary movements. I can see, Justine, you've got Rado there. So I'm also going to say, for context, we have the Rado energy of Suna's Chariot in Rado, Odin's Chariot in Rado is still strong. So that is still moving us forward. It's keeping us in momentum as we travel through. So again, very much Thor saying, walk the path you've chosen. Let's not be backtracking at this point. All right, what else do we have? So we've got Candice, you've got Dargaz, which is not one of our power runes. So let's see what we get from the the power runes that we've got to play with. And then I got Fayu and Dargaz in there for Lisa and Justine, so we'll see what will happen there. So the spirit guide runes that we are working with this week, we have the Issa rune, the rune of ice, which we have talked about in terms of the magician self. It is a wonderful rune to do meditative work with through the course of this month. One of my most popular YouTube meditations is the Issa YouTube meditation. People just really like it, and they sort of you can grasp it quite quickly how it works. It's quite a long meditation, but enjoy it and have a go with that. There is a sense of, with the Issa rune at this particular point of time, that holding on to the tenacity that the Issa rune offers you. We were talking about sowing the seeds in the furrow that you've already ploughed. Is that what's called, a furrow? That you've already ploughed? Is Issa. It's like keeping going in the direction that you've agreed and being a little bit stubborn when you need to. But what we're going to be, what I'm going to suggest in terms of an exercise for you to use, whatever rune you have pulled, it's a really nice exercise that you might want to think about for the coming month ahead. So Issa represents, we can use that to represent the ego. So if you've got Issa, then it's like, yeah, that sounds that's a good rune for me to work with. So I'm going to use Issa as an example here of saying, okay, so if Issa has come forward as the guide to support me, and when working with the house of my soul, the ego is the house of my soul, what I want to be able to do is to embrace that Issa energy, to say, yeah, absolutely, I'm really feeling that energy at the moment. What collaborations with other runes might make my magician self more powerful, more able to work and move in partnership? So again, if you're coming to do the Healing with the Runes work with me, this is a great time to start to work on working with different runes in combination with each other, or experimenting with different energies of different runes, because this is where the rune system is so beautiful, because you can work with one rune exclusively and say, right, I'm going to work purely with Issa, but you can also then bring in other runes and you can start to blend energies. And this is important for the Issa rune in particular, because the Issa rune, hence it being the rune of the house of the ego, etc. If we work with the Issa rune for too long and nothing else, we get stuck. That magician ego, it comes through, it comes to the fore. And I did I had about 3 months of work exclusively with the Issa rune while I was exploring it, first time round that I explored it. And I discovered after about day 21, that I needed to work with another rune to support me, to stop the stuckness of getting stuck in my own Issa energy after a while. So I actually actively wanted to invite runes in. So whatever the rune is that you draw either for today or in the month ahead, as you start to work towards the new moon energy, you might want to be thinking about that, about saying, actually, this is an opportunity for me to say, what's the primary spirit guide rune that's going to represent my energy at this time? And then what are the runes that I can work with that are going to subtly blend with it, so that I'm not getting stuck in one rune's energy. Now, I asked about, should I share this? Should I share this at Magic in Mind? Will it help people, or a bit too confusing? I asked that question, and I drew a rune. And when I did my Issa work, the rune that I selected to work with as my balancing rune for Issa was Suelo, the rune of the sun. And it is a rune of fluidity and motion. And so I would work with the Issa rune, and I would do my Galdra with the Issa rune, and really feeling into the power and the strength of Issa. And I would do those exercises. And then after I had done my Issa exercises, I would bring in the Suelo rune, very slowly feeling this, like the light of the sun coming and moving into my fingers and my arms and my hips, and moving in a much more fluid way, and feeling the light of the sun coming through. And that rune works really, really beautifully with Issa, because if you start with one of the more potent fire runes straight away, like Dargaz or Kinaz or Northiz, the Issa rune goes, because those are strong, hot fire energies. But we can have a beautiful sunny day that is absolutely magnificent and fills us with joy, and the ice doesn't retreat immediately. They like to partner with each other. So when you draw your runes, you're going to be thinking about that. So when I do the spirit guide runes, I'm going to talk about which runes might be complementary runes, or runes that will be, what's the word? What's like complementary, but also contrasting, that you can move in and out of to help you to balance the energies of the runes you're working with. So that's the little bit more about the Isa rune there. So we've talked about the Gibo rune already. So this is one of the runes that came forward as on one of our spirit guides for this week. So here we've got the Gibo rune, the rune of contracts, of exchange, of gift giving. I have to think of it as like a water wheel that keeps turning, and it adds this power to the flow of the water, you know, in a particular way. And if you have the Gibo rune, this is a great time, like I've said, to be looking at those underlying assumptions. Now, if you find that you're getting into a point where you're like, I'm stuck, you know, it's really frustrating me, and we said we were going to do this, and that person's not doing the thing that I thought that they were going to do. Again, thinking about this stuck energy, that maybe my soul home has got a little bit too stuck in Gibo. Then one of the runes that's really powerful to work with is the Ewaz rune, which also was the second rune that I pulled out when I pulled out runes for us to work with this week. So Ewaz is also a rune of partnership, so it's working really beautifully with the Frigg energy of collaboration. But what Ewaz does, it's a very different form of partnership, because it is instinctive partnership. It is that ability to say, right, I'm in the lead now, and I'm going, and I'm going, and I'm going, and now, hold on, no, now I need to step back, and my partner's moving into the lead, and I don't know where they're taking me, but I'm trusting them at this point, and that's all fine. And then the thing that I need to know is, when do I need to take the lead again? So it's not, whereas Gibo can be quite codified in terms of saying, here is a contract, here is a set of shared values, here is a vision that we've agreed together, here is I don't know, any contract at all is Gibo energy. Ours is much more, and you can think about it as being like the horse and the rider who have developed a partnership together over time. There is a strong I will care for you element. I will give you what you need, you will give me what I need. We offer totally different things to the partnership to such an extent that actually codifying what it is that I do and what you do could be very difficult, because we don't even understand each other's languages. And yet we develop that trust. You remember that the blind man needs to be led piece? You can think about that as being, well, it might be that the blind man goes and says, please can somebody help me cross this bridge of ice? And another person comes forward and says, I will help you cross the bridge of ice. I will be with you from the beginning of the bridge, and I will accompany you across, and I will not let go until I get to the other side. No, and that's the Gibo energy. I will do this. And the person might say, what I ask for you in exchange is, please trust me, do what I ask, don't tread off to one side, because you might put us both in. Those are all Gibo energy. Then we get to the point where we're crossing the bridge, and things like, okay, we're going to try it, and what I'd like is, if you're behind me and you put your hands upon my shoulders, and then we're going to move forward, feel my steps. And there comes a point where there is then silence as you cross over the ice, and the first person who is leading is moving forward, and you can hear the breath. And the person behind who cannot see is starting to intuitively understand how the other person's body is moving, and when their footsteps are short, when they are long, moving slightly to the right, slightly to the left. And we don't know how long the bridge is going to be, but eventually they will get to the point where they're working in a deep partnership together that doesn't require words anymore, like dancers working together. That is Ewaz energy. So you can see how, if you are stuck in one rune's energy, like the Gibo rune, you might want to move into the Ewaz energy, and the other way round works as well. So if you've received the Ewaz rune, you might be somebody who is very instinctive, who has got very used to a particular way of partnering. My dad has just broken his foot, half month of rado, can't walk, and he and my mum have been together for a very long time. They've had a very long, very happy, very successful marriage, and their relationship is very what's the word I want to use? Like interdependent. It's not codependent, it's interdependent. But when he broke his foot, those things were exposed, because suddenly there were things that my mum was like, well, your dad has done all of those things, last, however many years he's done this and he's done that, and now I'm going to need to learn how to do that. And they're having to codify some of that now rather than working instinctively with each other. Because needs have changed. And so they're having to renegotiate some of those. This is what I'm going to do, this is what you're going to do. This is how the new washing machine works. This is the button you press, you do this, you do this, you do this. All the things like the cuckoo clock has run down, because that's something that my dad does every day. And my mum was like, oh, there's something wrong. And when I came in, because I used to live there, I could always hear the cuckoo clock. I was like, there's no cuckoo clock. But I thought, well, I won't say anything because Mum's got so much that she needs to do. I'm not going to be like, you haven't done the cuckoo clock. It's not important. But I heard my mum say sort of, but she was in the hallway, she went, She just went up and she wound up the cuckoo clock and she got it all ready and she got it going. And, it's that some things are intuitive and instinctive. Like my dad maybe just hadn't thought, the cuckoo clock, or he thought, I've not said anything. But we were all picking up on. These are things that subtle changes. That cuckoo clock has been going solidly for years. So that's the Gibo and the Ewaz energies happening with partnership there. We also have to work with today the algors rune. Now I like this. If you think about, remember I talked about the Issa rune and the being like the home for the soul, and then the Valkyria being inside the ice and its light, being held and housed, you might say, by the ice. So it's almost like, imagine that before we're born, our souls are flying free, and bits of us are all over the place. There might not actually be an experiencing self. There might be like parts of us in all sorts of different places, travelling through different realms and different dream worlds. I'm extrapolating now, I have no idea. The Valkyria self is not contained in any way. And then when we are born into this incarnation, the soul needs the container. It needs the container, so it chooses this little home of ice. And I can really see that with the algors rune, this sort of partnership. You can see the Kinaz rune, it's a fire rune there, and the Issa rune, they're sort of together there, and it's this the beacon of light. And when the algors rune comes up, it talks about partnership and protection, about divine partnership, about guides. I can really feel the presence of the Valkyrie very much at the moment. They're just very present for me at this time, that sense that we are watched and we are loved and we're protected, and that even though we have chosen in this lifetime to come and to have a human experience with all of its limitations and all of its beauty, when we are open to the support, we're not trying to control, we're not following the path of the egotistical magician, then the algors rune is all around us. The lights of our ancestors, of our spirit guides are there with us. They are not as tangible as we are, because they are not travelling in their soul homes, in their human soul homes through the course of this time. But they are with us when we reach out for them, and the algors rune reminds us of this. Now, if we get a little bit too up in our heads and not enough down into the grounded energy of the Issa rune. Issa rune is a very good rune to work with, obviously. Kinaz is a very good rune to work with as well. Don't work with the hands. So you can actually sort of break down the algors rune there and work with those two other runes to ground yourself back down into your container a little bit. And to say, yes, there will come a point when I will be flying free in the realm of spirit once more, but it is not today. So yeah, a little bit of what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, if you find that you're you're using the algors rune too much, or it's coming up for you a lot, you can work with them and find ways of exploring them and just getting a little bit more flexible around them. Last two runes that we have today, and then we'll have a little look at the Daggers and the Fae runes. So we've got the Largus rune. Now the Largus rune hasn't come up so far today, but it has been very present, and that is because it is the rune of water. And we have Thor's chariot in Largus at the moment. Ud's chariot is in Ingus at the moment, but it's going to be returning to Largus because of the retrograde motion. So that there is that watery energy is very powerful and potent at the moment. That fertilizing energy, that ability to cross between worlds, to journey from the realms of death into the realms of the living. All of these things come through with the Largus rune, so it really brings that fluidity and that flexibility in. What is it bringing to us specifically at this point? It is that sense of a bigger picture, that sense of I might not always know why I'm doing the things that I'm doing, but I set the course. You know, plowing the field, I've decided on what I'm going to do. Sometimes we can double guess, second guess ourselves, and start to think, oh, is that really the way? Is that really the way? And it's really that reminder that the water will flow, the energy will come regardless, but it needs a channel. And if you're still building your channel, the energy is going to dissipate. You know, it's going to go off somewhere else. It doesn't make you less worthy. It doesn't mean that your idea wasn't a good one. None of those things. It simply means you hadn't finished the channel for that energy to come through when it came through. So this is one of the reasons why the Largus is saying, you know, really commit to that. So if you're struggling with a bit of excess Largus energy at the moment, you might want to try something like the Iwaz rune with the staff to keep yourself moving forward, or the Rado runes very present at the moment with Suna and Odin. That literally that walking. Now I do that a lot. I've got very strong Largus energy, so I use walking a lot to provide that rhythm and that structure to help me to channel my Largus energy. And then finally, our last spirit guide rune, and the last rune that we're going to be working with through this cycle before we start all over again with the new moon, is Athala, the rune of the ancestors. So we have the ancestors, we have the estate, we have the land. It's a really good rune to work with in terms of thinking about the home of the soul and thinking about the egotistical magician. Here we go, there's the Athena Room. And this simply brings in the idea of things like, imagine the Sorcerer's Apprentice, or the Fool and the Magician in Tarot. And the fact that, you know, all of us, we take these life journeys from being the initiate into becoming at some point the initiator. We're all somewhere on the path at any given time. And when we're stuck in the egotistical magician, we stop that cycle because we say, I only want to be the initiator. I don't want to be the initiated anymore. No. No one can initiate me. I've learnt all of the stuff that's worth knowing. And I don't like that feeling of being out of control, of putting myself in the care of somebody else. I don't want to be led anymore. You know, I don't want any of those things to happen. And this is perhaps the dark side of the Athena rune a little bit, is that sense of going, you know, I know best. It's when hierarchies come into place, when this is the way and no other one is the way. I'm right, you're wrong, and all of those things can come through from that point when we get stuck in that energy. And Athala doesn't, you know, again, I should be really, really clear that that's not what Athala represents, but it's part of its mystery. You know, it's that ability to get stuck in one corner of the Athala and not to be able to see its bigger picture energy. And that actually, without the initiated, there is no initiator. No, we never get to the point where everybody's now we're all initiators and no one else is being initiated. We're stuck in the realm of ice where nothing ever happens ever then at this point. So it's that embracing of the path of the fool, of saying, I don't know, I don't have all of the answers. I'm going to go and try a new adventure, even if the only reason I'm going to try a new adventure is in order to try a new adventure. Now, I might not necessarily want to know how to frost a wedding cake to perfection, but there's a masterclass coming up on that next week, and I need to be in the position of the fool, of the initiated, for a period of time to re-experience that and to release my fear around being in that position. So that's, if you've got your Athena in, that's the energy to play with there. If you find that you're getting a little bit stuck in Athena energy of like, I want to be safe and do what I know, the Bacano rune is a very nice one to try, or the Dargaz rune is a very nice one to try. Justine, channeling our inner Pippins. Yes, indeed, lovely Lord of the Rings reference there. Channeling the inner Pippin is exactly what you should be doing at this point. So, who had Dargaz? It was Candice, wasn't it? So it just feels like a right time to do that. So Candice for you, so Athena and Dargaz are at the very end of the rune row. So it might be about playing with that energy of ending and initiation with those two runes. That the Dargaz rune is the doorway that we step through, and the Athena rune is the structure of initiation, the structure of the ancestors, that which has been left for us. But the Dargaz rune is our own unique experience of that moment. It's recognizing that even if we repeat a rite of passage that has been going on for centuries, the experience that we have of it, the Dargaz rune, is unique and different. And there's something else in there. All I can say really is that as I'm speaking, I'm seeing you sort of in all of the roles. Imagine that you're like all of the roles. So I'm just in this beautiful like castle of Athena, it's like an ancestral castle of Athena, and you're the person crossing the bridge to go in, and you're also the torchbearer holding it alight at the doorway, and you're the priestess standing inside to welcome the person. You're all of those. What does that mean? I'm just going to leave you with that vision, because that's what I've been given, and I'm going to have to it's yours rather than mine. And the final one we had was Fayu, wasn't it, which was Lisa's. There is some winding Fayu energy. It's sort of leading on from Candice's a little bit. There's it's almost a call, Lisa, off the beaten track is what I would suggest. It's that listening to that little voice saying, oh yeah, there's a road here, and that's fine, but there used to be one over here, and you're sort of feeling that there might have been a road there, and just because it's not there anymore doesn't mean it wasn't there in the path. It's almost like there are deeper channels available. Now we've talked about following the path that was that we've ploughed, that's already there for us. This is like an old path, something to reconnect with after a period of time, is the sense that I get. It's almost like it's been waiting. There's a little bit of Athena energy underneath, and then the Fayu wants to travel through it. So if there is a project or a goddess sort of speaking to you, whispering to you at this point, it's sort of saying follow that and trust that you laid those foundations at an earlier point in your life. So it might feel new, but they're sort of saying no, it's not, it's there and it's waiting. Okay, so reminders before we finish. Sooner Star Wheel, if you're not a member, this week is a great week to sign up, because then you will get your soul care meditation and all of your planetary movements for the next lunation, and I'll be talking you through that path of the healer that we're going to be working with. And obviously we have our opportunities, our 3 opportunities. So we're going to be working with the healer in the half space through Magic in Mind for the next 4 weeks. We have the Healing with the Runes masterclass coming up on the 12th of September. Put that in your diary now. We will have more coming through on the newsletter. And we have the Healing for Others practitioner certification, which you are eligible for if you have completed Awaken, or if you have significant experience already of working with the runes, in which case just email talk@maginrose.com and we can have a chat about that. Then you're eligible to come and become a certified rune healer with Magin Rose. So keep your eye out for the newsletter. Lovely to see all of you. Thank you so much. Lovely to see you there at the end. Amelia saying many pieces clicking in place for you. Exciting. You must tell me more about that. And I look forward to seeing you all very, very soon. Enjoy this Waning Moon week.